It's Tuesday, April 12th, and it's time for WorthPoint Chats with Harry Rinker. I'm Greg Watkins at WorthPoint, and Harry, where are you today?
Well, actually, I'm in Washington, D.C., Greg. As you know, I am a member of the Citizen Stamp Advisory Committee, and that is the committee that advises the Postmaster General on the subject matter and on the design of postage stamps. There are 15 of us, actually. Actually, there's 13. There's 2 vacancies at the moment. And I've been on the committee. I'm in my second 3-year term. I've been on there for 5 years. I can't talk about, I've sworn to secrecy about what's in the future, but we can always talk about the stamps that have been announced. And this is a big year for stamps because it's also the 10th year when the Great International Philatelic Society's convention and meeting is in New York City. And so we've done a lot of extra stamps this year that are going to be doing first day releases during the stamp show event coming up in there. But I'm in Washington. I'm in Washington too because it's one of my favorite cities. Having grown up on the East Coast, I got to travel down to Washington, D.C. a lot and talk about and visit a lot of the museums here. In fact, when I had my museum career, when I was at Historic Bethlehem and the Humor Parkway in Easton and the York County Historical Society, I used to come down and take training sessions here at the Smithsonian with the people down here. And so I roamed in and out of the Smithsonian museums. Now, we'll not tell you how long ago that was, but that was 50 years ago, maybe. Anyway, long and the short of it is that now what happens is that I take the opportunity when I come in for this to go back and revisit some of the great museums that are here. I mean, I was here when they were building the National Aeronautics and Space Museum. And of course, now that's just a fabulous museum. My favorite museum, strangely enough, is not the Museum of American History, although I love going in there because I see my childhood. I don't see, the worst of it is I don't see my childhood. I see the childhood of my kids, which was a reminder to me that maybe I'm a little more ancient than I think. But anyway, one of my favorite museums within the Smithsonian complex is the Freer Gallery, the Oriental Museum, which is top of the line. In fact, on the way over to the St. Regis, where I'm staying from the airport today, I drove by the new African American Museum, which is actually getting very near completion. They hope to open it, I believe, this fall. So it's there. But at Washington, D.C., beautiful time of the year to be here. The tulips are up, whatever. I didn't see any cherry blossoms, though. Either they're over or I'm sure they must be over because they're usually a little bit earlier than this. But nevertheless, it's a great deal of fun. But we're here right now to talk about antiques and collectibles, what's going on in the trade. We're also here to respond to any questions or comments our listeners may have. Now, we tell people we do this live every week usually at Tuesdays at 2. Now, we're going to take a break next week because I'm going to be in Germany. But, we do this. And there is, if you're watching live, there is a chat room. And I've got that screen open. So, if you have a question while we're talking here in the air, you can just go in there in the chat and so forth. Have we gotten any questions in at all from any of our WorthPoint viewers?
Not yet.
You know what? It's like pulling teeth here. We gotta get on their case here. But that's all right. But speaking of interesting things, I want to talk about a story in the trade. They recently sold. This is one of those really wonderful things. I'm digging up my notes on it here. Grace Rowling, the gal that did Harry Potter, when she was living really in a kind of a, I don't want to say housing unit flat, wrote the book, and somewhere along the line somebody said to her, "Hey, would you be willing to donate a chair to be sold?" And so Rawlings and I mean, we're talking about a chair that if it didn't have this association, right, it would be worth $10, that much. But in this case, it was there. Now, I'm going to sidetrack a little bit because, I always tell people I love talking about antiques and collectibles and telling stories. When I was appraising the objects in the National Cowboy Hall of Fame, I had an opportunity to appraise Bob Wills' guitar. Now, Bob Wills was one of the very early of the Western country musicians, and he's like a legend.
Oh, I know Bob Wills. I like Bob Wills.
You like Pipe Wills, right? Yes, I know. I have CDs of his stuff. I do too. Anyway, I got to handle his violin, okay? And here is this violin, right, that he played. And I look inside of it with the light, and here it's a fake Strat from Sears Roebuck. No, seriously. It had that paper label in it.
Right.
And, any other time, if it's playable, at any other time, that's a $300-400 violin, maybe $5 even, if it's in really good shape. But it belonged to Bob Wills. So somewhere between $250,000 and $5 million. Jeez. But, sometimes the ordinary with the right provenance can do very well. So anyway, back to the Rawlings chair. So this charity writes to her and says, hey, we'd like to get something for a charity auction that she was supporting. So instead of just giving him the chair, she decorated it. And that is the key to this whole thing. She decorated the chair with all kinds of writing on it, the houses of at Hogsworth and so forth. And it sold. And originally it brought, I think it was $21,000 out there. And then finally the guy decided to put the chair up for sale. Well, of course, guess what? Now he bought it for $21,000, and he put it online, and somebody bought it for $29,000 online, which wasn't a bad deal either. And they just resold it for $394,000. So can we see the chair again? Do you have the picture of the chair again, Greg, or did I lose you?
Here. Yeah, no, it's up right now. It's up now.
All right,
yeah,
I'm seeing the WorthPoint. I'm seeing
video that.
No, I'm seeing a WorthPoint logo and not the chair. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why, but anyway, this is part of our fun of doing these things over the internet. But anyway, the chair is up there, and the situation is that what's fun about it is that now you have to say, okay, somebody paid $394,000 for it. Now, is that the limit for this chair? And the answer is maybe, because what's going to happen is, there is an upper limit at which everything will not sell. I mean, there is an upper limit price. Now you say, well, isn't Harry Potter going to go on and on and on and on, and isn't she going to become a legend? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. But the problem is, for how long? What do you mean? People say, what do you mean for how long? Well, who collects Frank Sinatra stuff anymore, or Perry Como, or Doris Day, or worse yet, Eddie Cantor? The thing about it is that time is a fickle thing when you come to all of this type of stuff. Now, hopefully this person will donate it to a museum. If he bought it as an investment, I think he's in big trouble unless he sells in a big hurry. But the thing is that things have to stand the test of time, and we're not talking about a time frame here of a very long period, Greg. Seriously. So, this guy, somebody paid a lot of money. I can't blame him for that. Hey, you buy it because you love it. I don't think he's going to sit in it. Oh, it'd be fun to sit in it, right, or wouldn't it? But anyway, there you go.
Yeah, it might be.
That's in the news, and let's see who. Try to see if I. This was sold by my good friends at Heritage Galleries, which is the other reason I want to talk about. Heritage Galleries down in Dallas, Texas, is giving Sotheby's and Christie's and Bonhams a run for their money. I just saw that they had a 950,000 person mailing list now. Email.
I'm on it. I get
a lot of us are on it. A lot of us are on it. I know the guys at the PR department down there, and they do a heck of a job. But they are Heritage. Heritage is fun because what Heritage did is it broke into the marketplace not through the standard high-end stuff, but through coins initially, and then Americana, and then started looking for niche markets. And one of the biggest ones they ran was comic books and illustrator art. And they've done that. Now they're coming into the high end of the antique marketplace. But Heritage is fun because it gets the contemporary fun stuff. I mean, really, it gets the contemporary fun stuff, and it's there. So anyway, it's always fun to track the Heritage stuff, so heritagegalleries.com. But we're going to move on. We've got two objects to look at today. Let's take a look at the first of the two. I got a kind of an anonymous letter, and it just said, hey, I have these two vases in my family. They've been around for a while. What are they worth? Well, the first step to determine what anything is worth is to know what you're looking at. And this is one of those cases where I get very nervous with the new breed of young collectors and young appraisers and young dealers, because I took one look at these and I knew what I was looking at. And I'm not sure a lot of younger people have any idea what they're looking at from all its many aspects. So let's talk about what we are looking at. If these were sold in America, they would be sold as Mary Gregory glass. Now, this is one of those kind of legends and myth we have in the antiques and collectibles trade. We have a lot of stories out there that aren't true, but they've been around for so long that they're legends, so they might as well be true because everybody keeps repeating them. Now, the story goes that there was a painter at the Sandwich Glass Company up in Massachusetts, there on the Cape, that painted enamel painting on glassware, and her name was Mary Gregory. Well, and that story was considered true when I first started when I took over the Warman's Antiques and Their Prices in 1981. We now know that A, it's probably not true, and B, Mary Gregory probably never existed at all. So the question becomes, what are we looking at? Well, this type of enamel painting on glass was very popular in Bohemia, in the Czech, which was then part of Czech, well, was part initially of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, then it was part of the Czechoslovakia, now it's part of the Czech Republic. But this type of painting was very popular, and a lot of it was imported into the United States. I don't think much of it was done in the United States. So chances are that these are European imports. Now, if that is in fact the case, the other thing is, how do we date them? Because, and one way you can date them is by detail. Look how much detail is on these paintings, and look at how the enameling stands up in relief away from this. I just had a chance to look at a pair of gorgeous inverted, well, a cone, I guess, inverted cone lampshades that must have been hand painted with enamel in the 1920s. I mean, they were some of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen. But the detail here is exquisite, and that would tend to allow me to think that they are period in this case being 1900 to 1915. However, Mary Gregory glass was heavily reproduced. In fact, you know, one of the things I try to encourage everybody to do is obtain a copy of Dorothy Hammond's Confusing Collectibles, probably one of the most important books. So what Dorothy did was got a lot of the reproduction house catalogs from the 50s and 60s and reproduced them in her book. And she did a lot of pages on reproduction Mary Gregory glass. So now the question is, what do we have? Do we have a later piece or an earlier piece? Well, the details suggest earlier, but if we can go back to the slide of the two vases themselves, first you got a matched pair. That's nice. Now here again, notice that they're not identical. They wouldn't have been. These are hand painted pieces. If they were absolutely identical, then you get very suspicious of them. But how do you tell whether that cranberry colored glass is period or the later cranberry glass that a lot of this stuff was painted on? Well, first of all, you look at its translucency, how clear it is. It should be crystal clear. The easiest way to test it is to drop your fingers down in it, and if you can see your fingerprints through the glass, that's a very good sign. The other thing is the glass should be thin, not real thick. I mean, it's not that these pieces don't have some heft to them, but the glass should be reasonably thin. Also, if you feel it, it should not have a greasy flair to it. It should actually feel just a tad rough. Now, this is a really difficult thing to learn how to sense in your fingers, but it wasn't until much later that glass got a very smooth thing. And if it's greasy, that's definitely a sign of, or oily feeling, that's definitely a sign of a later glass. So here's a pair of Mary Gregory period vases, I'm almost certain. And so the next question becomes, what are they worth? Well, the question is, who collects Mary Gregory glass these days? I mean, this was hot stuff in the 80s, and even to some, well, certainly in the 70s and 80s, and certainly into the early 90s. I mean, a pair of vases like this would have sold easily for $450 to $600. But today, the market's totally collapsed. The reproductions of the 50s and 60s got passed in the 90s and 2000s as period pieces, and everybody got there. Now we can use WorthPoint to study some of this, right, Greg?
Right. So I looked up the Mary Gregory glass vase footed because the two examples you have the feet on it and pink, and I wasn't able to find anything. Cranberry.
Light cranberry glass. Yes.
All right. Well, I'll change that in a little bit, and we'll see. So there are a lot of examples of Mary Gregory, but none exactly the same.
Yeah, but when you're doing research in antiques and collectibles, you don't always find the exact match. What you're looking for is what we would call comparables. Now, if you go to the second row to the left, that says Mary Gregory glass. I'm not sure what the form is there. It's a vase on there, and that appears there. Now, what did that bring?
$108 2 years ago.
Yes, and if this is one of those things when you're reviewing prices. If the prices seem too low, smell reproduction. But they look pretty good to me, and that may be one really good indicator of how low this glass, the period glass, has fallen. Because if those are period vases, I can remember times when they were $475 to $600 to pair, just like the other ones. But now let's go back to the WorthPoint site again, and you've got a lot of pieces in there that some of the sellers have dated. Now notice. No, wait a minute. Go back. Stay where you were for a moment.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry about this, but you're in control. It's not me. So let's get that slide back up again.
All right. So you want to see the?
Yeah, I do, because I think this is very important stuff to talk about, Greg, and that is that what is fraud in the antiques and collectibles trade? Well, if you look at what this seller says about these things, okay, it says pair of vintage Mary Gregory glass, girl parasol, boy tall bud vases. Now, the situation is, notice what's not there, the date. The date's fraudable. Vintage is one of those words that has no meaning in this business. We'll talk about that someday. I don't like that. I like antique, collectible, and desirable, but vintage you can take because it's defined so badly. To me, vintage means, if you're lucky, 60s and 70s, and if that's what he's trying to say, fine. But the point is, he doesn't put a date in there because he's not sure. And so if you buy these things for $108 and you go back and say, hey, wait a minute, those are 60s repros, he doesn't have to refund your money because he sold you exactly what he described, a pair of vintage Mary Gregory pink glass parasol boy tall bud vases. And if you think you're buying a period piece, then you need to see the date in the description, because the date is fraudable. If you buy it and then you can prove it's not made during that date period, then you have a recourse legally, no matter what they say about all sales are final and all the rest of the heck with that. You can go after it. Now, this is what I try to tell sellers. If you're going to do your research work and you know what you have, put the date in there. That is one of the best forms of confidence building in a buyer you could possibly want. All right, now we're done with that one.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, no, but all these points that we're making, Greg, are good ones.
Right. Well, and vintage, you say it's one of those squishy words. Something produced today is of 2016 vintage.
Well, that's exactly right. It's like the words real, original, and genuine. What is it, real, original, and genuine? If you can see it, it's real, original, and genuine. I mean, seriously, it's either period or it's a reproduction, or which is an exact copy of a period piece, or it's a copycat, a stylistic copy. It's a fantasy piece if the form or pattern didn't exist historically, or it's a fake. I mean, it's simple as that. But anyway, you can find a lot of comparables up there and so forth. Whoops, no, we don't want to go to that one yet. I want to talk about another story first before we go to the watch. I've got another story to talk about. Oh, wait a minute. Whoa. But before we talk about the story, let's talk about how people can send us questions or objects. Look, we want these chats to be responses to your questions, the questions that you have. And we have an opportunity for you to do that. You can send it via email to community@worthpoint.com. Attach your photographs as JPEG or zip files. Give us as much information as you can, how you acquired it, what you paid for it, what's its dimensions, all the rest of that type of stuff. And we love to talk about them here on the air. But if you just have a general question about what's going on in the antiques and collectibles field, we'll be delighted to do that too. So there you are, community@worthpoint.com. WorthPoint.com. Anyway, back to the news. Ta-da, as they say.
Okay, back to the news.
Yes, in Antique Week, not this past issue, but the one at the end of the first week in April, there was a story about the Kansas State fixture. The Kansas State State House is being repaired, and yeah, there you are, right there, dating back to 1900s, and they're going to sell this stuff on the block. Now, this is one of those fun things. There's a whole not hidden, but not well understood part of the antiques and collectibles trade called, I just had it at the tip of architectural remnants. People that specialize in architectural elements from old buildings, fencing, rails, fireplace mantles, doorknobs, doors, stained glass windows and stuff. And they sell this stuff to modern builders and other people who want to put some fun, unique stuff in the house. I mean, a lot of hanging lamps wind up as architectural remnants as well. But here is the state of Kansas, which I can't blame. I'm going to try to capitalize on own a piece of the old state house. Now, I got to tell you what, Greg, this is not a new concept. I have a small collection of pieces of things from when they restored old Ironsides back at the beginning of the 20th century. They cut up the old beams into blocks and sold them to raise money for the restoration. I have a cane, and you see, often find a lot of canes made out of pieces from one of the first houses in the community. I have the first home built in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania was 1742, and they tore it down to build the Hotel Bethlehem, and I have a cane made out of one of the beams of that house. But this whole stuff, you go to the Civil War things and you find canes made out of twigs from famous trees that were involved in the battle, and all the rest of this. And I also have a friend that went around and cut up old trolley car rails when they were tearing out trolley car rails in towns for street projects. He'd get them and he'd cut them up and sell pieces of the trolley car rail, and wound up with a huge collection of different types of rail designs. So anyway, the whole thing about all of this, seriously, there you go. The whole thing about all of this is this: buy it for the fun of it or because you want to do it, but long-term range, it will not have a lot of effect. Although one of the things that I had in my collection that Kevin Smith sold when he sold my collection of stuff at KD Auctions in Allentown was I had a plank of floor, a little sliver of floor that had blood on it. And it was supposed to be the blood of Captain Ellsworth, the first Northern martyr in the Civil War, who was killed at some place or in the South. I don't know. You know, you have to have a lot of belief. But famous people's hair. Hey, did you read this? Did you read this? Ripley's Believe It or Not got ripped off. Did you hear that one?
No, I didn't read that one.
Well, no, this was in the news too. Somebody broke in and stole autographed baseball bats from a Ripley's Believe It or Not. A Joe DiMaggio one and a Ted Williams one. But you know what they did? They replaced them with fake bats. And so
really?
they didn't know that they were stolen for a while. and they also stole a bat and a baseball. Okay. They stole a Ted Williams autographed baseball. Yes. But guess what? There was a lock of Ted Williams' hair in the case, and they didn't steal that. Well, I don't know how they know they did. Maybe they've done a DNA test on on his hair, but for some reason they didn't want the hair. But it was very common in the 19th century to get lockets of hair of famous people. Reminds me of that John Wayne movie called The Shooters. Did you ever see that one?
Yes.
Yes, and what happens? Remember, he's in the barber shop, and
right.
The undertaker comes in, and they cut the deal to bury him, and then the barber sweeps up all the hair, and then he sees the hair in the other chair and sweeps it up and mixes it up all together anyway.
Well, Heritage, you're talking about Heritage Auctions, they just sold a box that had a lock of John Lennon's hair.
Yes, they did, as a matter of fact. You're absolutely right.
That's right. And the provenance was beautiful. It was when he sat to get a haircut to make a movie. Something about when I went to war, what I did in the war, Daddy, or something. I don't remember the title. But that was...
Well, do you think I should sweep up my hair the next time I get a haircut?
Sure.
Yeah, but that would be the white stuff. The really valuable stuff is the brown stuff. I had to, when it was a different
Yeah,
color.
well, I may not have as very much.
I know. We have to capitalize on what little we have left here, Greg.
That's right.
All right. Well, we have another object to talk about too. This was a
Okay.
watch that came in. This is another thing too about pocket watches. Pocket watches come in two kinds. One is called the hunter's case, and the other one is open face. Open face is obviously when you can look at the watch. Here you can see from this one that the thing pops open and it's got a case. So this is a hunter's case watch. It's an Elgin, and we're going to forget for a second about whether it's gold plated or gold case. But what I did want you to look at is down pocket watches. Most people who are used to them from the 30s, 20s, and 30s, the pocket watches were wound by lifting the stem up and then setting the time and then pushing the stem in and winding it. But early pocket watches were what they called lever set. And if you try to pull the stem up to set it, you'll ruin the watch. You pull the stem out of the watch. Usually, if you look down around the number 5, sometimes around the number 2, but around the number 5, you will see a small, what looks like a piece of metal there. If you take your fingernail and pull that out, that will free the minute and the hour hand to set the watch. And then you push it back in again and you can wind it and it will work. Now, the question you have about this watch is, okay, here you have a little Elgin pocket watch. The pocket watch market's in really bad shape at the moment. But the news is that if you have one with a gold case on it, the gold has value anywhere from, depending on the size of the watch, from $100 to a few $100s, maybe up into $400 or $500 for some of the larger cases. So let's look at some of the other things that we have about this watch as a way of trying to identify it here. Okay, for a gold-plated watch, this is a fun one. Look at the nice work on the case here. Now, that's not hand done. That's machine stamped, but that's okay. Going on to the next slide, the key is that we have, we can see very clear, oh, there's the works, and there's the serial number. And Elgin's serial numbers and Waltham's and all the others are available on the net. You can look up the exact year this watch was made. My guess is in the first decade or two of the 20th century. So we have that. You can sometimes count the number of jewels. The higher the number of jewels, a little bit more the watch is worth. But then the next slide will show you that the watch itself is gold plated. If it was gold, it would say 14K or 10K or whatever, and guaranteed for 20 years definitely means that it's gold plated. So we have a gold plated Elgin pocket watch, hunter's case. It is in working order. But what's it worth? I mean, you could buy them $55 to $65. In fact, to show how prevalent they are, you did a search on WorthPoint about them, didn't you?
That's right. So,
and I had you put in the word hunter case, and you still wound up with over 900.
Close to 1,000 Elgin pocket watch, gold-plated case, hunter case.
Yeah.
And there's 992 of them in our system.
Yes, exactly. And you, I think I can see, I can't quite make it out here because it's a little bit on the smaller side, but a lot of the selling prices are well under $100.
Yeah, they're ranging between $20.
Yep.
Up to 109 for this one here.
Yeah, you know, for the watch for the watch that we're looking at, a price somewhere around $65, $85 is probably a good thing. But as he says, as Paul Harvey would say for the rest of the story, let's go to the last slide that we had in that series. The watch had a chain on it, and the chain had a slide on it. And slide chains are highly desirable. Now, a lot of times, women will buy a bunch of them, then pull the slides off and make a bracelet out of it. But if you find a nice slide chain, even if it's gold-plated, you're looking at a minimum of $35 or $45. So, you know, you got the watch maybe at $40 to $60, assuming it's working, and it is, I know, because the person said so. You have this, so you probably have $100 altogether. By the way, I want to mention very quickly that we're taking registrations now for the Institute for the Study of Antiques and Collectibles Summer Camp. We've got 3 different seminars. They're each 2 days long. They're going to be held in East Lansing, Michigan, in the Gallery, which is a big antique shop there in the historic district of Lansing. July 11th and 12th, we are doing 2 days on researching antiques and collectibles. Now, we did a course last year on authenticating them, but this is how, when you find a piece of glass like the one we looked at earlier, and all you're looking is a piece of glass with enamel work on it, you have no idea what you're looking at. How do you pin these things down? How do you ask the right questions? So we're doing 2 days on that. We have a 2-day course called Painting, Prints, and Watercolors. And then the final 2 days is a 2-day course on toys, games, and puzzles. Come be a child again, and whatever. You can find information about these by going to harryrinker.com and then just click on the Institute logo. You see it there on this thing. And we are taking registrations. The courses are limited to 30, and we've got one course over 10 already. So, you know, if you want to come and sign up, you want to get in there pretty quickly. We promise you a really great time. And, you know, really what we do is we almost go through the whole day, because when the course is over, people go out to dinner. We'll do a lot of networking at lunch. So that's fun as well. What's new at WorthPoint, Greg?
Well, we just had a new infusion of items into the Worthopedia database. We just had, I'll get the numbers here, 16,182,299 new items into the WorthPoint Worthopedia. And so most of them are, here, I've got a list here. So Thomason Place Auction Galleries, Garth Auctions, Cowan's Auctions, iGavel, Freeman's, Rago Arts, Eldred's, Bertoya Auctions, the toy auction house.
Yeah, and those are some big names.
So yeah, we're getting a lot of, you know, some people will look at the Worthopedia and say, well, all you have are eBay results. And it's true that we have a vast number of eBay results, but it's also results that eBay doesn't keep. If you look on the solds for eBay, they're no more than 90 days old. And after that, they roll over to us, and we have the eBay results going back until 2006. 2006,
but
yeah.
You know what? But again, a lot of the stuff, the high-end stuff doesn't sell on eBay. But, you know, you want to get high-end modernist, Art Nouveau, arts and crafts stuff, you go to Rago.
That's right.
You know, Freeman's has just been bought out by this firm, and it's trying to challenge the New York houses. So you get a lot of the upscale stuff from Freeman's. I heard you mention Cowan, and Cowan's a great house because Cowan has a lot of specialty sales, not one of which is a Western sale several times a year. So, you know, you see a lot of interesting stuff coming in from Cal. Eldridge is, well, you mentioned a number of good houses in there, actually. And I think that's a real plus. What happens, again, is that all of this new material means that, you know, if you do some extensive searches of this stuff, you'll do very well finding stuff.
Yes. And like you mentioned with Cowan's, if they have a sale on the Western, or they have Civil War sales every year on CDVs and early photographs and belts and buckles and all of that memorabilia, Civil War militaria. That's where the bulk of our data shows up. So if you're researching what a cartridge box, a Union cartridge box might be worth, odds are that it's going to be a Cowan sold item.
Okay, but you know, but this is also going to lead the way. You've got a couple other auction houses to go after. You got Julia's up there in New England, does a lot of fun stuff. To get you to talk to boys down in Heritage. Hey, they supply a lot of the photos for the Krause publication price guide, so they're certainly willing to share, I would think.
Yes. Heritage is part of our database as well.
And you know what? This is another game. I've been around the evolution of the internet a lot, and everything starts out with a dozen different people offering the same basic services. But the truth of the matter is that over time, one of them survives, or two or three. Okay, I mean, you know, you have Ruby Lane as the internet antique shop sites, but you also have a site where people can set up a shop and sell on the internet, right?
No, actually, we sold
Go Antiques?
Go Antiques, right? So Go Antiques is now part of the Gemmer.com operation.
All right. Well, and hopefully they can make it work. But the name of the game is right now, in terms of having a broad-based pricing, you're there, and ultimately you'll get some art. You have some artwork on your site already, but some of these big high-end specialty sites where the price tag is thousands of dollars a year, you don't have to do that, and you continue to work with the map site and everything. Well, anyway, let this session go a little bit longer, Greg, than normal, because I am going to take a week off next week. I have to go to Germany. A longtime friend passed away, and he is the brother-in-law of my friend Hans Martin Hertlein, who is, while not my blood brother, is a brother to me in every sense of the word. And I'm going to go over there for the memorial service. So we'll be back and doing this 2 weeks from today on April the 26th.
Yes.
Yes, at 2 o'clock.
Right.
But please, let me just put one more plug. I always feel like I'm begging here, but we would love to hear from you, those of you that are watching these videos. Send us your questions to community@worthpoint.com, or send us pictures of objects that you're interested in that you'd like us to talk about, and we would be delighted to do that. Well, anyway, it's a beautiful sunny day in Washington, and I am ready to go out and enjoy some of that sunshine. So, Greg, we'll say goodbye and talk to you in 2 weeks.
All right, Harry, you have a good trip and enjoy Washington, and we'll see you on the 26th.